The day my father died, I learned exactly how little I meant to my stepmother. His heart stopped on a Wednesday afternoon. By that evening, she had already claimed everything she thought was hers. When I came downstairs carrying an overnight bag, she stood in the hallway with her arms folded and said something that had probably been rehearsed long before the hospital called. "This house belongs to me now. Pack your things and leave." I looked at her for a few seconds, then picked up my bag and walked out without arguing. She thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming. My name is Emma Carter, and for most of my life, I was the extra person in my own family. My mother died when I was 10 years old. After that, my father, Richard, did his best, but emotions were never his strength. He was an accountant who understood numbers better than people. Instead of talking about grief, he taught me about investments, real estate, and financial statements. Every Saturday, he drove me around town and pointed at houses. "What do you think that one is worth?" I would guess, and he would explain why I was wrong. Those drives became our language. When I was 12, he married a woman named Sharon. She came with a daughter named Madison and a smile that fooled almost everyone. At first, I wanted us to be a family. Then little things started happening. My room got smaller. Family photos stopped including me. Holiday cards featured Sharon, Madison, and my father while I somehow disappeared from every picture. Nothing was dramatic enough for anyone to notice. Sharon never yelled. She never insulted me directly. She simply erased me one careful step at a time. By high school, I understood exactly where I stood. My father saw it too. The problem was that he rarely confronted it. Instead, he found another way to help me. When I was 16, he took me into his office and showed me an investment account worth $5,000. "This is yours," he said. He taught me how markets worked, how compound interest worked, how wealth grew quietly over time. Then he gave me a piece of advice that stayed with me forever. Always do your own math. Over the years, he added money to the account whenever he could. More importantly, he started teaching me about a commercial building he owned downtown. "Someday this will be yours," he told me. I never questioned him. I simply listened. By the time I graduated college with a degree in forensic accounting, the investment account had grown substantially. More importantly, ownership of the commercial property had slowly been transferred into my name through a series of legal transactions nobody knew. Not Sharon, not Madison, nobody. Life moved on. I built a career, expanded the investments, bought additional properties, reinvested profits. My father and I spoke every Sunday morning about numbers, markets, and business opportunities. We never talked much about feelings, but I understood what he was doing. He was preparing me. When I turned 32, my father became seriously ill. Heart disease, multiple hospitalizations, doctors, medication, fear. That was when Sharon began controlling access to him. Every time I called, she said he was resting. Every time I tried visiting, she claimed it would upset him. Eventually, she stopped letting me see him altogether. Meanwhile, she gained power of attorney and inserted herself into every financial decision she could reach. The more she tightened her grip, the more nervous I became. Then one day my Aunt Carol called. "Your father had another stroke," she said. Sharon never informed me. I found out through relatives. 3 weeks later, my father died. The hospital called me before Sharon did. I drove through the night to the family home. When I arrived, neighbors filled the driveway and condolences flowed through the house. I went upstairs to the room where I planned to sleep. 5 minutes later, Sharon appeared. "You are not staying here," she said. "This is my home now." I looked around. The room had stopped being mine years ago, so I picked up my bag and left. I checked into a cheap motel nearby and spent the next several days grieving alone. The funeral came a few days later. Sharon sat proudly in the front row beside Madison. There were 3 family seats. 3. One for Sharon, one for Madison, one empty seat. I sat several rows behind them. That hurt more than I expected. Not because of the seat itself, because it perfectly represented 20 years of my life. My aunt sat beside me and squeezed my hand. "Trust your father," she whispered. "He prepared for this." I did not know what she meant. Not yet. After the funeral, Sharon started inventorying everything: the house, the savings, account personal belongings. She assumed she already knew what the estate contained. Then, Madison casually mentioned hearing my father talk about some building downtown. For the first time, Sharon looked worried. She contacted the estate attorney and demanded answers. While she waited, she made a mistake. Using an expired power of attorney, she withdrew $80,000 from a joint account after my father had already died. She thought nobody would notice. She was wrong. My attorney noticed immediately, because yes, I had an attorney. I had hired him years earlier. Not because I expected a fight, because my father expected one. The estate meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. Everyone arrived: Sharon, Madison, my aunt, several relatives, and me. When I entered with my attorney, Sharon looked annoyed. "Why do you need a lawyer?" she asked. "Because I am a beneficiary," I replied. The meeting began. The attorney read the will. Sharon received the house. Madison received a modest educational fund. The remaining savings account would be distributed according to the estate. Sharon nodded confidently. Exactly what she expected. Then the attorney continued. "There are additional assets that are not part of the estate." The room became quiet. Sharon frowned. "What assets?" The attorney adjusted his glasses. Over the last 18 years, Richard Carter transferred a series of assets during his lifetime. Those assets belonged to his daughter, Emma. I felt every eye in the room turn toward me. Sharon stood up. "What assets?" That was when my attorney opened his briefcase. First came documentation, showing ownership of the 6-story commercial building downtown. Then records of investment accounts, then statements from multiple real estate holdings, then the final valuation report. My attorney placed it on the table. Total value: approximately $28 million. Silence. Absolute silence. Madison stared at the paperwork. Relatives exchanged shocked looks. Sharon looked like she could not breathe. "No," she said. "That cannot be right." My attorney calmly explained every transfer, every signature, every legal filing, every tax document, everything had been completed over nearly 2 decades. Everything was legal. Everything belonged to me. Then Sharon turned toward me. "You knew all this time?" I nodded. "You threw me out of the house the night my father died," I said. "Did you expect me to explain anything after that?" Nobody spoke. Then my attorney introduced the final document. The $80,000 withdrawal. The room immediately changed. He explained that the power of attorney Sharon used became invalid the moment my father died. The withdrawal should never have happened. Funeral expenses totaled roughly $8,000. More than $70,000 remained unaccounted for. Madison looked devastated. My aunt looked disappointed. Sharon looked trapped. For the first time in over 20 years, she had no control over the situation. Eventually, she sat down and spoke quietly. "Took care of him. I stayed beside him. I gave him my life." Nobody argued. She had. But my father had also known something important. He knew Sharon would never willingly share power. So he protected me long before this meeting ever happened. My aunt finally said what everyone was thinking. "Richard loved you, Sharon, but he also knew who you were." The room went silent. Again, because everyone understood this was never about money. It was about trust. My father trusted me. He planned for me. He protected me, not with speeches, not with promises, with actions, exactly the way he always had. I stood up. I looked around the room. "I am not here to take anything from anyone," I said. "Everything under my name has belonged to me for years. I came here so everyone would finally know the truth." Then I looked directly at Sharon. "You wanted the house. Keep it. I never needed it." And with that, I walked out. A few weeks later, Sharon hired an attorney to challenge everything. He reviewed the documents and told her exactly what my attorney already knew. There was no case. The transfers were legal. The assets were mine. The challenge ended before it began. She also returned the money she had improperly withdrawn. After that, the family slowly learned the truth. The story Sharon had spent years telling, that I was distant, selfish, and uninterested in my father, collapsed completely. People finally saw what had really happened. Months later, I moved into a new apartment overlooking a city park and launched my own consulting company. I named it Carter Financial Group, not because I wanted to honor my father. Publicly, he would have hated that. I did it because everything I knew came from him. One thing still sits on my desk today, a small calculator. He gave me when I was 16. The plastic is cracked. The buttons are worn, but it still works. Sometimes, I pick it up and think about those Saturday drives, the lessons, the conversations, the future he quietly built for me. People assume this story is about $28 million. It is not. The money was never the point. The real inheritance was something far more valuable. My father gave me the ability to stand on my own feet without needing anyone's permission. And when the moment came, that turned out to be worth more than everything else combined.